All right, so we're back for week 3, the week 3 assignment for the hammer fired course. First things first is safety. Got some safety glasses here. I already removed all the live ammunition from the spot. And so part 1 of the assignment, we're just going to be working on some component drawings. We're going to detail strip the SAR B9, and we're going to be inspecting and making blueprint drawings of 3 particular parts. It's going to be the recoil spring guide, the ejector, and the firing pin. We're going to use the calipers to get the dimensions right. And then at the end of the video, we're going to do a 9mm headspace measurement on the pistol, make sure it's within tolerance, which it should be. It's brand new. I'm not going to bore you guys to death, so I'm just going to hop into it. So, once again, first thing is first is safety. Most importantly, we got to make sure the gun is clear. Drop the mag, rack the slide, lock it back, inspect, verify nothing in the chamber, and it's time to break into this thing. Okay, so this isn't a full teardown of the gun necessarily. As you can see, the trigger bar and the trigger is still in there, and the front house is also still in there, mainly because the parts that we're doing a blueprint draft of are already out. We're also going to be leaving the sear installed into the ejector. This whole housing is considered the ejector according to the schematic. We got our recoil spring guide here, so we're going to be doing a drawing of this as well. And we have our firing pin. Now the reason why I'm not doing a full teardown is I did that for week 2, and the spring for the sear as well as the spring for the trigger, this one wasn't as bad, but it was still kind of difficult. But this one I simply just don't have any needle nose pliers small enough to get that spring in. I think it took me about 45 minutes to get that spring in last week. So we're gonna get to drawing. This one's gonna be kind of tricky. It's got a lot of curvatures and stuff on it. To make it simple, we're probably just gonna do a drawing that emphasizes the angle and the size of the ejector, because that's what matters as far as proper ejection goes. Okay, so this kind of brought me back to when I was taking my airframe and power plant class, portion of that class where we learned about aircraft drawings, and a lot of it kind of transferred over to doing this. This one's not completely finished because given the dimensions of the housing itself or the ejector itself, it would have taken me probably more than just tonight to do it. But when it comes to machining and blueprints and stuff, there's symbols and easy ways to indicate stuff. Typically, you'd on a computer-based like CAD program, you'd have a legend down here indicating what everything means. A lot of blueprints will have a type of shading on the object itself and with a legend of what the surface material is. I'm not sure if that's like a CNC machining thing all around or if that's just an aircraft blueprint thing, but that's something I've always used. And a lot of this I learned from the CAD program I use to, you know, make prototypes on 3D printing and whatnot. I'm gonna pull out the recoil spring guide. Sometimes you have to do some math because, for example, this little nipple here, I couldn't get an accurate reading with that. So all I really did was just measure from the overall length, and then I measured from the forward end of the rod to the back side of the pancake. That's what I'm calling that for now. And I just did the math and I got 0.90. So yeah, it's just like, you know, math and art had a baby. So you don't have to be an artist to do this, but it's a good skill to have, at least the ability to draw it out and clearly indicate well enough for yourself to understand what the dimensions need to be at certain parts of these parts, really. Learning machining and the symbols and stuff isn't really like a super dire need. It's really just a matter of what you will know how to read. Because the ejector is a good example of something you might have to draw a blueprint of if you're doing work on it, because that ejector surface on the tip there, if that's cocked left or right, up or down, you could get ejection issues, and most commonly resulting in a stovepipe. And if for whatever reason, if you have a little bit of ability to machine as a gunsmith, then that'll allow you the ability to replicate parts if needed. But I'm going to move on to the headspace check for you guys. That's a pretty straightforward task, so I'm just going to swap over there and put this gun back together, and we're going to get to it. Now, before we move on to the headspace check, we got to clear the gun and do a function check because we did maintenance on the gun. We got to make sure it's working right. We're going to do a dry fire function check first. Check the safety. Good. Red is dead. Okay. Check the reset. Looks good. Okay, so that chambered one. Yep. Looks good to me. 9mm Headspace is off of the full length of the casing, meaning from the case mouth all the way to the head stamp. So Headspace is the distance from the bolt face, which in this case it's that face of the slide here, slide face, and then to the datum line in the chamber, which is where the case mouth would sit. And that is a very, very strict tolerance. So we got a no-go gauge here, and then we have a go gauge here, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The go gauge should lock, so we're gonna do the go gauge first, and we're just gonna see if it locks correctly. Now when this locks, these grooves interact with those grooves on the slide. You have to push it under the extractor there. And as you can see there, we have a fully closed barrel with the slide. I'm gonna take the no-go gauge, slide it in there, and if this closes all the way, if it locks completely, that is not a good sign. And it will not lock. Yeah, that's not gonna close. So it checks out according to those no-go gauges. Now there's several reasons why headspace in a firearm is really important, but just one quick example is when you fire a round off, that case between the time the bullet leaves the casing to the time it leaves the muzzle, that case is swelling and hugging the side of the chamber. But if you have too much headspace, in other words, if the no-go gauge was able to close down on that, then your distance from the slide face to that datum line in the chamber, if that's too long, then you have a gap between the case mouth and that datum line in the chamber. And that can cause the case to not swell enough to hug that chamber, and you can have a premature extraction and ejection, which is super unsafe for the shooter because all that gas is going to come backwards into the shooter's face. And on top of that, the bullet's already jumping a little tiny distance from that little datum line point to the rifling of the barrel. And if you're adding that extra distance with an increased diameter for that bullet to jump through, you could damage the gun, you could cause an overpressure inside the gun, which is also an unsafe situation. There's just a lot of things that could go wrong, but those are just two to name a few. But yeah, that's all I got for you for this assignment. All right, so yeah, that is a wrap for this assignment. So a little bonus update for all my subscribers, all 200 of you, I guess it is. If you saw my last video for the degree program, I mentioned that I was trying to start a business, and the FFL application for said business is officially sent. It is in the mail, so 3-4 months from now, I guess we'll see. That's gonna be the point of no return. But plot twist, I'm not doing firearm manufacturing anymore. Too expensive to get into right now, maybe in the future. But ammunition manufacturing, because I've been doing it for 6 years. So if you have questions about how to get your FFL, or if you have questions about SDI, there's a link in the description down below for the SDI stuff. But you could also comment on my videos and I'll find out what you guys want to see from me, because pretty soon I won't be doing SDI videos anymore. So help me help you like this channel and subscribe. But yeah, so stay strapped. Peace.